Hey everyone, and welcome to Comics from the Multiverse episode 203. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
And Connor's here too.
Yep, still going.
DC Comics podcast, of course. We talk about DC Comics every week, and we still have a relatively small amount of books this week. Next week looks a bit more back to normal, but coming up on this week's show, we'll be talking about DCeased, the Unkillables issue 3, Jimmy Olsen issue 10, Plunge issue 3, and the Dollhouse family issue 6, which is the final issue of that mini. So, literally half our books this week are Hill House. But we'll have a digital first roundup, of course, which does include a surprise new book, which was maybe more appointment reading than typically they are, because of its connections to one of the other ones. And then that's pretty much the show. I don't know if, Carl, did you read any Patreon books this week? I didn't ask beforehand.
No, I didn't. I thought I'll do one next week. I don't know.
And then you saw,
Yeah.
you should have.
Well, yeah. I think I did one. Did I do one last week?
Yeah, you got another one to do, though.
Yeah. So I'm fine. I can do one next week.
Yeah. But the week with less books
Well,
wasn't...
I didn't realize there was that many until I've literally just looked. I just assumed, it's going to be the same as the last 2 weeks.
See, and now because of the digital first, I have all those that are coming out, plus the digital first books that I want to read. So this is great.
I mean, those digital first books are coming up pretty quick, so some of them have almost done by now, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know, because like the Batman one switched to Mark Russell, which then I read because I like Mark Russell, which just added stuff that I didn't actually need to read. You know?
Yeah.
So.
I actually have a news article about some of the digital first books, so that'll give us the lineup of what's going on. There is some rotation.
There's rotation happening, okay. Interesting. Well, actually, on the digital first books, I mean, it's maybe the same article, but the main thing I was going to take from it is that they're adding Birds of Prey
Yes.
to the lineup. There was a Birds of Prey Giant, which is now becoming digital first, but not really a first because it was in the Giant first. But that's coming soon as well. It's Birds of Prey, Sirens of Justice.
Yeah, by Gail Simone.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it should be very traditional Birds of Prey stuff.
Yeah, so Pete, you
with
should be
Harley,
happy.
I think, actually, though, if I recall.
Oh, Pete won't be happy then.
Yeah, this is the one that's Harley, Canary, and Huntress.
Yes.
Pete's gonna hate it.
Yeah, I'm probably good. I could probably just ignore this. It's fine. Yeah, we got a whole schedule here. So we got Superman out on Monday, which is the same. May 25th. May 26th is Batman Gotham Knight 6, which is still the same. Wednesday's now Birds of Prey, Sirens of Justice. What was Wednesday before?
It was Wonder Woman.
Yep.
I didn't actually read Wonder Woman this week because issue 5, I think that was the last one that just came out this week, wasn't Palmiotti and Connor, so I skipped it. So,
but that sounds like the reason to read that one.
Let's see who it was.
Great. It was Van Jensen, something like that, I think. But I just thought, I mean, I don't need to buy it because I bought the other ones for Palmiotti and Connor because I like them. I thought, I'll save $1.
Baffling. Thursday, May 28th, we got Aquaman Deep Dives, which I don't. That's issue 6. I mean, these are all issue 6 in terms of size, or some of them longer than that.
Yeah, well, that one was 6, but the last one was part 1 of 3, so that's going to at least 7.
Flash Fastest Man Alive 6 on May 29th, which is by Jeff Parker.
Yeah, it's weird because we'll talk about the end, but this didn't feel like the end of the Gail Simone stuff on this week's
No,
one.
but
I don't know if they maybe when they were publishing them in the Giants, maybe there was a break from that, and we got some Jeff Parker stuff in the middle.
Yeah, but it definitely feels like an end cap to a story, but not the greater story. You know, so yeah.
But I mean, Jeff Parker, so I'm probably going to pick it up anyway.
Yeah, and then the Saturday cartoons is running, although with a new series, which is Teen Titans Go Booyah issue 1, and then Swamp Thing's continuing with issue 6 on May 31st. So that's your digital first.
With one notable exception in that list.
Yes, well, that's because when this article was published, they probably didn't know about it.
Well, no, actually, I recall now that other one is every 2 weeks, so it's not in the next week of schedule.
Okay. So that what we're talking about, of course, is the DCeased digital first, which was surprise dropped this week. Taylor teased it the night before on Twitter, and then there it was the next day. DCeased, hope at the end of the world. So, so there you go. It's a thing. We'll talk about that later in the digital first section because it exists. We've read it.
Yeah, I think it was really notable that none of the press releases mentioned a print release later, which was weird.
No, but people started doing the math and at what you were getting versus the timetable that it very well will get a just, not right away.
We know it's going to be 14 of these digital chapters, and this is the old school digital style that they did, a few years ago, where it's the big landscape pages, and each one is about half a page size of a traditional comic format.
Yeah, well, I guess this is my problem with the word big there. It's actually smaller. It just feels bigger because it's filling more of the frame.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's very on brand because Injustice was like that too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All the older digital ones,
Yeah.
I think they did Legends of the Dark Knight, Adventures of Superman, Bombshells, all of them had that format.
I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of the format in that sense. Like, digital first is fine, but I wish they were just formatted like regular comic books, because I feel this is a weird comparison, because obviously it's written for this format, so nothing's been altered or changed. But there is kind of this feeling as I'm reading it, because it feels so constrained, that it's like watching a pan and scan version of a movie, where I feel like I'm only getting half of a page.
I don't agree, actually. I think they translate really badly to the print adaptations of them, because they have to essentially, it's still paced page by page, right? And then when they get slap them together.
I'm not arguing for the print versions of the ones that have been created digitally. I'm saying that I fundamentally don't like them being formatted for this in the first place. I'm not saying that slapping them together to make a comic book page later is better. That's different.
No, I'm just saying, for me, I think they really struggle when they're adapted to the page, the printed page.
I'm saying I wish
format. I like it for digital ones. I mean, why not? You can get away with it. You can have a landscape book, no problem.
I mean, yeah, if there were landscape as in they all feel like double-page spreads or layouts, then sure, but it feels so, I don't know.
I mean,
I feel like
I think I've read more of these digital first than you at this point in general, of these older ones, because I've read most of Bombshells, a fair bit of Injustice, and they do, a lot of them utilize they do, okay, this is a double-page spread, even though it's still the same size, it utilizes the format like that for a lot of them as it goes on.
Well, the ones I've tried have done that, and they feel too light, I guess, is kind of my overall thing, which is why I've not really gravitated towards a lot of digital firsts, traditionally. I don't know, because I feel like they're made for phones first, so they feel like again, this is a weird comparison, but they feel like the mobile version, or you get video games and then you get mobile video games, and there's like a disparity between them because the mobile games are really simple in comparison.
Why do you get the impression phones first? Because bizarre to me in the sense that phones are still generally held vertically. Sure, you can turn them, but whereas if you're reading on a computer screen, like a desktop monitor, that's already landscape. It's this is designed just to okay, you're on the web browser.
These are absolutely designed for mobile devices, phones included. I think that's why they're designed with these half horizontal panels, which full screen on a phone is still big enough to read. I think that's why they're this format. They want them to be super friendly to that size. Whereas a full page comic, obviously it works on a tablet because it's bigger and it makes sense. But I think the whole idea with the digital first is that they're very phone friendly, because all you have to do is turn it sideways and it's like perfectly readable at that size.
So what you're saying, this is the Quibi.
It's the Quibi. Yes, it's the Quibi of comic books. Thank you, Matt.
Come back to me after you've read Injustice. Go and read 15 issues of that.
Hey, no, that may be great. Maybe it bucks some of the trends that I'm talking about. But everyone I've tried, which isn't many, admittedly.
Although if you have them all loaded up, ready to go like that, you just tell him to go read 15, issues and see how he feels. I think it would feel a little bit different because you're not getting it piecemeal.
Oh yeah, no, this is not in terms of the release schedule. That's a completely separate conversation. I think Pete's just talking about the sheer reading experience.
Right, I know, but I feel like if you had more to go off of, right, it wouldn't feel, like he said, it wouldn't feel as small. Because I got to the end of this and I was like, oh, okay, that was it.
I feel like my problem is more just that each page feels like there's not enough there. Like, I feel like I'm just tapping next on my keyboard, like just at a rapid pace that just feels unfulfilling, as weird as that sounds.
No, I don't know. I like that it's free to experiment with the format and not be constrained to the standard page of a comic, which, I love comics. I love, okay, this is the page size. This is what we've got. This is the way it's read. But I think it's really interesting with digital first that okay, you're not thinking about the page first. You can play with that, and you can do landscape instead. And why not?
I don't necessarily have a problem with landscape. My problem is just how much it feels in terms of like how they utilize the size. And I'm all for experimentation, but I don't really feel that there isn't much experimentation. I feel like it's just another format that then sticks to exactly what that format is.
Hmm.
You know, I don't feel the experiment. I just feel like, oh no, it's just the B method that kind of sticks to it. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of how they're formatted. And okay, even though I say I'd prefer it to be there like a standard comic book page, I'm not saying it has to be. I'm sure there's other possibilities that they could go down or try. But yeah. Anyway, so that is the digital first coming up. But again, all the ones we just talked about are all from the Giants, which means they're actually all just regular comic books essentially, just coming out digitally. So you can see that. And then just one small thing here. It's not a big deal. It's not something we talk about a lot, but it is worth mentioning that because of DC going multi-distributor and not being tied to Diamond specifically, they've actually released a new, essentially solicits catalog, because now it's not tied to Diamond's system. So it's called DC Connect. You can get it actually get it on Comixology this week, which Diamond Previews was never on Comixology, was it? That was never.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think there was a little while where they were digital somewhere. Maybe Diamond put them out themselves. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But they tend to just, my shop's just like, here you go. It sticks it in my bag with my comics every so often whenever they're there.
Yeah, so it's not a physical book. The downloadable digital-only catalog features solicitation information from DC's comic books, graphic novels, collected editions, collectibles, all the usual stuff you expect.
Yeah, I mean, it's just your solicits, basically, like, which is all the Diamond one ever was. I think it was, the Diamond one had its own benefit in that it was all the companies in one book, right? So you didn't have to go to different articles and read, okay, DC solicits, Marvel solicits,
it's worth mentioning that DC's stuff will still be in Diamond's book, because you can still order it through Diamond. It's still going to be there, but they've just released their own separate one that's separate. And the fact that they're giving a solicits catalog to Comixology, it maybe again leans into this idea that they're embracing digital. The fact that they're finishing some books digitally, which again, Marvel did first, but they're doing more digital first. This surprise digital first this week again feels like another sign of them testing the waters. I would not be
surprised to see more over the coming months.
Yeah, so there you go. So I read my books digitally, so I want to make it clear I have no problem with digital books. I just don't like the format of the digital first. Not these giant ones, the actual digital firsts. All right, that's basically the news. There's not a whole lot this week. Last week we had solicits, which was like what, 50 minutes of soliciting goodness, followed by glorious sales figures talk, which might be the last sales figures talk ever. Which is, I don't know.
He'll find a way. I know Pete. I've done this with him long enough. He'll find something to replace sales figures with. It's fine.
So here's what we can hope. Here's the hope for the future of sales figures, is that the other distributors get their own sales figures, and then a site like Comic-Con will take them, combine them with Diamond, and we'll get some sort of super fused list. And then true honest sales figures that matter, that we can actually compare. Because obviously there's no point in looking at Diamonds anymore, because the Marvel's just going to win everything, because DC's have been, fragmented.
Even if it's only like 10% of stores that decide not to use Diamond, that's enough that they'll lose pretty much every month. And
it's worth mentioning these two distributors, at least one of them is owned by one of the biggest stores in the US. So I mean that's a big chunk.
Yeah, they both are. One's owned by Midtown, obviously. Yeah. And one's DCBS, which is like the biggest mail order service in the US.
So they just cutting those two before you even to bring any other stores into it. I mean that has to be a significant little chunk out of the pie.
Yeah, you'd have thought so.
So, I mean, that's what it is, I suppose. Don't know. I haven't done a lot of extra reading this week. I read this week's books. I still have the last couple of issues of Immortal Hulk. Not that we're doing elsewhere stuff just now, but it's been a little bit tighter on the reading this week. I blame video games mainly.
You sound like my mom.
Video games and editing.
I played video games.
I read quite a bit, but at the expense of some of my digital first stuff that I kind of was like, oh, I'm going to read this instead.
Oh, you neglected, did you?
Not me. And I almost got Planet Heist done. I have one issue left, but all the DC books came out this week. That four is a lot after you haven't had any. So and I went back to work, so that threw in a wrench.
Oh yeah, I have no idea that.
Into reading.
But I think Matt is the opposite, where he should be playing more video games. He's a little imbalanced right now in his media consumption.
Oh no, I'm back to normal now.
I
also watched a ton of Riverdale, getting season 4 through. So yeah, that show is so delightfully trash. Like,
I feel
half right.
Yeah, I feel like that was a waste of time there. Did you know Skeeter Ehrlich is not coming back for next season? He's leaving.
What?
Yes.
No. I gotta lose 2 dad figures.
He's apparently he's creatively stunted on the show now. He feels like he's done everything he could, so he wants to leave.
To be fair, he was a gang leader turned sheriff.
Wait, what? What? Hold on! Don't just drop that.
Hang on. Slight spoilers for Riverdale here, if anyone gives a shit. But that's the thing you're bothered about, where I'm pretty sure in the show Archie died and then came back to life.
Well, no, I heard about that part. I didn't hear about the gang leader from the Snakes becoming the sheriff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
FP because of Fred, Luke Perry, they had a heart to heart, and FP wanted to be a better man, and he ends up getting elected mayor and taking out sheriff, and helping bring down the lodges as the mayors.
TV sometimes is such bullshit where you can just decide to be a better man, and despite it having no background in law enforcement, be the sheriff within.
To be fair,
he does have a background in law enforcement.
He could just buy the votes.
Just not, yeah. Well, he does have a background in law enforcement, just on the other side of it. So, But no, it is this season.
Voting for him.
What's up?
He intimidated people into voting for him, obviously.
Yeah, well, no, I think he was appointed by the outgoing mayor or something. Anyways, we watched them all as they binge on Netflix. So Netflix puts them on. So there's a lot of stuff I don't remember because we're whipping through them so quick, but it's not like a show that needs your full attention. This season has been just Jughead's at a prep school, and there's like a Skull and Bones type thing going on. What's his name? The voice of Darth Maul, Sam Witwer, shows up. Yeah, Witwer shows up for like 4 episodes as his teacher, and then of course something tragic happens because it's Riverdale. And it's always tragic. Also,
speaking of the voice of Darth Maul, I finished Clone Wars this week.
No,
buddy.
Stop it! No more.
Epilogue.
The snow. Oh my God.
That epilogue, though, right?
Oh, that got me good. I didn't expect it, and then it's just in the snow, and it's gorgeous.
So, because I've watched them so spread out,
I watched them more or less one a day with only days off.
Well, no, I mean like Rebels to Clone Wars and whatnot. Alden had to correct me on the timeline of that and whatnot. And so now when you go back and watch Rebels, their interaction there's so much layered there. And
that's about 10 years later, maybe probably about 15 years later, 13, 14, somewhere in that range.
So it's boy, how great was that though, right? The Maul stuff. Her and Maul fighting is, I think, my favorite lightsaber duel ever, because it's what I wanted in the Obi-Wan and Maul, right? Stupidly wanted, right? But this one,
this is really smart, because there were people who were disappointed by that Obi-Wan Maul fight, and I think to some degree you included, even though
now I've definitely.
If you look at the point of it is so good. This is a way of going, okay, well, we did that, and now we can give the fans what they want and give them the cool fight as well, but still have weight behind it.
2 of my favorite characters on top of it, like Maul, circa Clone Wars Rebels, completely different character than he is in Episode 1. Like, he actually has character.
I can't wait to see more content with him in charge of the gang. Yeah,
because you could see him talking with them at a certain point on Mandalore.
And obviously, we know from Solo kind of the position he ends up in that organization. I'm like, I want to see some of that. So that's prime for some stories.
Yeah. So, oh, so good though. I'm glad you got caught up.
Between Ahsoka and Rex in those
Mhm.
final couple episodes was perfect.
Real quick, as Pete before he falls asleep, they announced Timothy Oliphant for The Mandalorian season 2.
Yes.
And then they kind of gave a name and what he's going to be doing. That
The expectation is
Cobb Vanth,
yeah, from the Aftermath books, which
right?
I did not like those books at all. They're some of the
Right.
worst Star Wars prose I've experienced.
However, under Filoni's guidance, right?
Yeah,
he can
pretty
make
much.
gold. However, it lends credence that Tamara Morrison might not be playing Boba Fett, and he might be playing Rex.
You could do two ways. He's playing Rex, which I'm more than okay with, and is preferable, honestly. They'd have to age him up a little bit, I think, for Rex this book, because it's old man Rex at this point.
Right.
Or he's Boba Fett and he's coming to get his armor back, which is less appealing inherently because I like Boba Fett just being dead. But I'm okay with it if that is where they're going.
Or why not both?
Having played both, yeah,
like
I'm down with that.
I mean, because I was talking about this with Alden as this came out, because you hadn't seen. I don't want to spoil stuff from Rebels and Clone Wars, right? Because you hadn't watched it. So, but I was talking to him about it and what it means with Boba Fett being a pretender, according to George Lucas, and not a proper Mandalorian. What that means for the show, and then maybe Rex being in there and what that means to the Mandalorian legacy, being a copy of a pretender.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously that armor is based off of like that Mandalorian style, so it's like it's very clearly a pastiche of that with reverence. It's unique in that sense, but then the stuff with Fett being like I say this pretender, but the Mandalorians that we see in the Mandalorian their group are very different from any other Mandalorians we've ever seen. So maybe this is like a Fett inspired cult for all we know.
Right. So. Oh man, very exciting times for Star Wars. That was completely organic too.
Yeah, so much good stuff.
Bring up Sam Witwer showed up on Riverdale, and oh man.
Yeah. I'll let Pete type back in now.
All right, for the love of all things, let's talk about some comic books because I can't do this. I can't. We're gonna talk about DCeased. Unkillables, issue 3. Tom Taylor, Karl Mostert on the art.
I was gonna make a joke about Pete being the crying Jordan meme, but then this book kind of made me the crying Jordan meme. So
I did not expect to be emotional for the words tree lobsters.
Me neither.
Yes, so this all came clicking together in a way that I didn't expect based on, having time away from it because of the delay and whatnot. Because we ended at a cliffhanger, because we started this issue with Bane, who's now zombified, just running towards everyone, and like, okay, all right, yeah, we're here. Yes, I vaguely... clicks into place.
And then Solomon Grundy rips off his head.
Creeper is one of my favorite lines, I think, ever in comic books is, that's the first time I've ever seen a headbutt not connected to a body. This book, like, I know it's horror themed, but so far, like even in the original DCeased, it didn't get to parts of horror that made me like go, oh my god, as parts of this one did. And then for him to balance it out with this bittersweetness of what happens.
The original DCeased mini.
Yeah.
I think this has more heart, which is, even though this is about a lot of it is about the villains.
Anti-heroes.
Yeah. It's got more heart in it than the one with the heroes did.
Well, and I think a part of that is because this is more about legacy. So I'm wondering what the next volume, that's called at World's End or World's End.
Well, that's a digital
World's End is the
one.
digital one.
Yeah. Okay. What's the next one called? Where they return.
I can't remember.
Either way, this.
I can't remember what it's called. 2. But it's just kind of.
It's just DCeased 3 / DCeased 2. This is 1.5.
Either way, my point is this one seemed to be more about legacy because of who these characters were. You have Slade and Rose there. You have Shiva and Cass, right? You have Jason. You have Gordon. So each of these characters that I just mentioned have some kind of tie to legacy. whether it was Gordon losing Barbara, right, coming across her, anti-life zombie self, and whatnot, and then Jason having to deal with Bruce and them that were in the cave and stuff. So once you get to the end, and man, in the grand horror fashion, it looks like all things the wheels are coming off. Some cases, literally here. It's just you start to see this come into view, and I'm wondering if that's what the next book's going to do with, it's John and Damien and Wonder Girl. I'm drawing a blank. Cassie, the other Cassie.
They're returning to Earth in that volume, right?
Right. Which means this is that in between to where I think some of these characters that we met here are also going to grow.
Yeah. Well, so the fighting all gets going, and we have some fun bits here with Creeper saying, "Oh, Grundy can't die on a Monday; it'd ruin the whole poem."
Yep.
So, and of course he ends up dying on a Monday, which just to make things sad. So you've got them kind of holding people off, going on the run in the buses with the bat tank at the front.
I really like the introduction of them all just before they leave the building with okay, here are the kids again, and a little bit about them.
Yes, which told me at least one or two kids were going to die, because that's why you let us get to know these kids that well, because we're going to see some of them really grabbed.
Not some of these ones though. When the kids start going, it's not the ones that we're introduced to.
That's true. It's more the red shirt kids.
Red shirts.
But
yeah.
I mean, I don't really remember who these kids are later in the book, outside of the one who likes Cheetah, right? They're all kind of separate.
Well, no, because you got the one that was, trained by Cheetah, like you just said. But then you have the Deadshot kid who bonded with him with the slingshots and whatnot. Some of them do stick out. So those are the ones I'm wondering how they're going to interact with these, because they have their own legacy to uphold now compared to the ones that are coming back who left the Earth, and what does that mean? So, but man, this went to some places. So as they're going out and Wonder Woman shows up, I've never been more afraid of Wonder Woman.
Well, hold on, you're skipping ahead a bit, Matt.
Well, we got out that they were running through because they have to basically convoy from Bloodhaven to Gotham.
Yeah, you have the sequence on the bus happens before Wonder Woman.
Yeah, we got Mirror Master first. Yeah. We got Mirror Master first. And also, we should mention where they're going. They're going to the garden. They're going to the
Gotham jungle.
Yeah, which obviously has kind of miraculously appeared. And some of the kids get grabbed, but we also have the little girl, because one of the favorite moments in the last issue was her saying "Good Kitty" to Cheetah. And right. Cheetah, when she sees that the girl's in trouble, lunges and doesn't let anything happen. And the girl once again says "Good Kitty" to her and pats her in the head. And I don't think I've laughed as much recently than when she turns around to Gordon and the rest of the bus and says, "Only she gets to call me that."
Right.
That's where the heart comes from, though. It's not just that they're doing the right things. There's this bonding that's going on with the kids, and basically this issue boils down to all of these villains and anti-heroes essentially sacrificing themselves for these kids to survive. Whether it be the kids from the orphanage, or it be their own kids in the case of Rose, and I mean, even Gordon's saying that's Batman's son up there. I can't just not help. I can't not do something.
Yeah, it's why I think that spread introducing the kids is so important, because it does a little bit about which one is trained by who and likes, like that one with Cheetah is
right.
Has trained to strangle a pompous princess with her own golden lasso.
It's kind of like,
even when Wonder Woman shows up, she goes, go get that princess. And it's not in the way of where little girls like princesses and whatnot. She's using it as a pejorative.
Yeah, it's kind of like
princess ass, was it?
These kids are all getting their own legacy character, or these villains are all getting their own legacy characters, because obviously the heroes come from things anyway, right? They already have this idea of legacy. The kids have kind of taken their own. But the build to Wonder Woman is quite good, because Rose kind of senses it coming, and she's like, strap in, and Jason's like, it's a bad tag, it's fine, nothing's wrong with us. Is it? No, trust me, I see what's coming, strap in. And Wonder Woman, lands with this full page spread of Wonder Woman all bloody and, drilling blood and all zombified with the eyes and everything.
Yeah, again, that struck me more. I don't know if it was the art than when Superman turned, right? Like the Superman turning in the last one was tragic because of Flash and whatnot. But this was just full on Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I think it was going for a different approach. Like I say, that Superman one
Mhm.
was this tragedy of, this is the greatest hero falling, whereas this is
Mhm.
just sheer horror. Of,
Yeah, this
this
is
is an
the,
unstoppable force coming for your kids.
this is the
Uh-huh.
fear that comes after, and I think what works so well about this moment, it's what's worked so well about these DCeased books in general, and why I think this Unkillables is actually much better than the original DCeased. Like, for me, I think this 3-issue mini is like in the stratosphere in terms of like rankings here, because this moment where Cheetah runs out and it's like, okay, I've been fighting Wonder Woman for so long, and she comes out here and she's like, I'm going to protect these kids because Wonder Woman is now the dangerous one. And
Mhm.
this not only works in the context of having her bond with the kid and the build up of this own story, it also wonderfully inverts just DC Comics in general in a way where
Mhm.
Wonder Woman and Cheetah have so much history, and the idea that we are legitimately rooting for Cheetah in the fight against Wonder Woman is masterful storytelling.
Now you
Masterful.
know how I feel sometimes.
I think we all agree that this is probably better than the first, DCeased book in general.
Yeah, and I like
Yeah.
the first.
I think that's we all like that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think
It's-
that's an important
but
step
I-
that this book doesn't function anywhere near as well without that setup and that story
No,
of seeing the tragic fall.
and it helps that it's more focused, that it's not as trying to
do you know what it is?
show the whole world falling as that first one did.
Do you know what it is? But beyond the specifics of what he's done with the characters in this book, I think the difference is that the original DCeased, well, it's got all these fun moments and it's played on DC history and Dinah's a Green Lantern now and all these things.
Mhm.
It's so it has to kind of do all the setting up, not just in the way a normal story, but in the way that it's kind of 6 issues of and even though it's really smart, because a lot of writers wouldn't necessarily do a lot or think of a lot of these things, most of it is really just, okay, how does this affect this character over here and this character over here? And this many kind of started that way, because, okay, how does Deathstroke get affected by this and so on? But this story is much more about the actual story. It's much more about the arc of the characters who are going through this and having a lesson learned. They're growing and changing. Whereas the main book, okay, maybe there's a little changing, but for the most part, it's just the world is dying and it's watching the
And they're
heroes die one by one.
Do you know what it feels like? It
And they're
feels
trying
like
to survive.
the original was the pilot for this universe.
Yeah.
Like that was the setup, and
Yeah.
and then everything else from here on can actually be okay. We can
Well,
do these
he's-
focused stories in this world now. We don't have to. We don't have to spread, show the entire far-reaching consequences of every little action like we did in the first.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and it's Taylor playing in his own sandbox.
Well, just to
right?
stick to that TV comparison for a second, it's very much like season 1 of a lot of shows is kind of like good at the concept or whatever, but season 2 often is when it kind of takes off and becomes like what the show really is. And I feel like, as much as technically this isn't season 2 because there's a DCeased 2, this is kind of more of an in-between, but for all intents and purposes, this kind of feels like we're getting to the gold as to why Taylor wanted to explore this and wanted to do this world. This is kind of a proof of concept almost, more so than the original book, because this is proving that there's stories to tell in this world beyond just, the
Yeah.
zombies attacked and this is how they survive or don't survive.
And I'm not a zombie guy. Like, that's my least favorite kind of horror, because I just don't like. I get it, reanimated corpses are scary and whatnot, but I just feel like they've been troped to death. But here I feel like the zombies and at least in Unkillables, they were more of a seasoning than the entire meal. And like
Well, no,
the
here's
main story was this emotional.
Well, yeah, here's the
you
thing,
know-
Matt, is that most zombie stories, they exist to be zombie stories. There's tell me one other, with the exception of maybe like an episode of some TV show that's been around for a long time, how many zombie stories do you already know the characters for years, or in this case decades? Like,
No,
The closest I think of is, I think Marvel did a zombie series, right?
but it wasn't.
But it wasn't.
wasn't.
That was like a just, oh look, everyone's dying to zombies. It didn't have any weight
Yeah,
to
it was Marvel Zombies, and it was just a. Well, I mean, then they came back and tied Evil Dead and whatnot into it, so it made it a little bit different, right? This is purely DC. This is the anti-life equation, running amok with a
well, I mean,
virus.
what I'm talking about here, it doesn't matter what the cause is. It's just about the fact that all these characters and their connections all have weight and matter before everything even starts. So
Right, and
once
it's still uniquely DC, but I still feel like if this was a zombie movie and these were the type of characters we were introduced to, if they were archetypes, I still think a lot of it works.
I know, I
know?
agree. A lot of it probably would, but I think there's a sort of zombie fatigue in general across the board, right? Because there's just been so many zombie things over the last couple of decades. But I think what's unique about this is that it's very rare to have such a long form storytelling that's already existed. There's nothing to do with DCeased itself. It's just all these DC characters are established. All these connections between them are established. So once you start seeing, like, because when I watch a zombie movie and it's like new characters are introduced, they'll do even a good one, like Traité Busan, really, really good stuff. But it's not the same as immediately going, wait, how's so and so going to react when this other character dies? You know, how is Gordon going to react when he finds Barbara's body?
It's something that's very unique to comics in general, and even just as taking aside from the zombie thing here at all, just kind of put that to one side for a second. It's something that, because we know so many of these characters, there are a lot of books that we can go into with that doesn't have to do as much heavy lifting as other properties would, because we already have connections to characters. We come in with these biases that they can just play on that are already established, and then they can invert tropes from the start because they don't have to set up the tropes first. And I think that's what this has done here, where it doesn't have to worry about setting up any tropes. It doesn't have to worry about setting up any relationships, because it knows most of the people reading this already know these characters. It's fine. So we've got kind of free reign to just mess with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get, and this continues. So we have the cheetah moment, which already kind of hit hard because it has all this weight behind it of like flipping the roles, because now we're rooting for cheetah. But then you've got Creeper and Grundy kind of like saying, no, we're going to go help her. We're going to go stand off because these kids need to be saved. And they're like, we're tree lobsters. And it's kind of their moment, right?
Yeah, the handshake with the tree lobsters. I was like, oh God, that's getting me. They're sacrificing themselves. And
and it's not just that. That's just the handshake. Does anyone else recognize what this panel's like based on? Does this the hands together?
I have to look at it again.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it.
Carter won't get it. Carter doesn't like the movie.
Is it Predator?
It's Predator.
Okay.
Okay.
This is Dylan, you son of a bitch. Look at it. I mean, if it's not intentional, I'll be surprised, because like having that muscle bulging in that exact shot just looks like Predator to me. But I mean, maybe people disagree.
No, it is.
Predator, well, no, it's fine.
It's fine. All right. So you got all the villains like jumping out to take on Wonder Woman. Now, you've got this is the moment where Gordon's like, no, that's Batman's son. That's your girl out there in the back, because the Batmobile got flipped over when Wonder Woman landed, so they're kind of sitting ducks.
Like a missile.
And Shiva and Cass have their moment where Shiva kind of sacrifices herself to save her daughter.
Right after she just gives Slade shit for like, hey, look, it's one person. We've got to save everyone. What are you doing? And then immediately is like, all right, I guess I see his point.
Yeah.
Like, but between Hill writing Shiva and Batman and the Outsiders and her here, like, I feel like she's the next person to get the anti-hero treatment.
Oh, maybe.
Like, I would not be surprised if we get like Shiva as a supporting character somewhere.
We've kind of had that in the past, though, right? Where she just does whatever's good for her. It's not necessarily villainous. Sometimes it is.
but I feel like tying her to Cass in both of these now, I feel like they're gonna play up on she's tired of being the lone wolf and she wants to be there for her daughter. And here she really is, because she sacrifices herself for her.
If you want to do that, if you want to go the anti-hero route with Shiva and make her more of a solidified, like, no, she's kind of on the side of the good guys for the most part now, tying her to Cass, and Cass being the reason why she turns over a new leaf, is the way to do it. It's the one that makes sense.
At the moment, she's kind of in the same place that Deathstroke is, where you can have a story where he is fighting not necessarily for the right reasons, but on the side of right, and you can buy it in the right situation quite comfortably. Yeah,
speaking of Deathstroke, he gets obliterated because Wonder Woman just flies through, because he's holding off the army, and that's great last stand. Yeah. And then Wonder Woman just flies through him, so there's nothing left to like repair. It's just glorious. And then we get
the narrator though.
Well, heart out.
Yeah. Shiva ripped her own heart out. Yes, you're right. That was also one worth mentioning. But
literally,
let's get to the twist, because there's a reveal here. Because there's a narrator of the whole issue who, and I never really quite even got that it was someone that we weren't supposed to know. I just assumed it was someone.
I thought it was Jason.
It makes you think.
I was thinking Jason. Yeah, I was thinking Jason. Yeah. But so we get this moment.
Go ahead.
We get this moment where Wonder Woman picks up the school bus. All the kids have transferred to the one bus. Wonder Woman's picked it up, and they're all kind of, hanging on for dear life. And we get this close up of the one girl who's like, and we sort of realize that she's the one narrating, right? As she says this, and she goes, "Oh and it's like she's about to say, "Oh shit," right? That's
that works already, because that's a classic moment in like a kid's sort of approachable movie.
Yeah,
right?
we can't see it. Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, but then you turn the page and the rest of the word is Shazam, and you see the lightning bolt go through the bus, and it's Mary Marvel.
Such a grin on my face.
It's, yeah,
that was fantastic.
Do you know the thing
I
about
legit fist pumped.
Do you know the thing about this series as well is that there's so many characters that DC ignore or don't really give that much attention to, and like Mary Marvel ain't getting this moment in like a mainline DC event, at least and not in the current climate, not time soon, maybe someday.
They tried in Countdown.
I generally understand why. No, not to put her down, but in the sense that in the big mainline events, there's so many big characters to choose from that they can play these moments with, that they don't need to resort down to them.
No, I don't have to resort. No, that's the thinking right there. That's the problem. No. You like giving smaller characters the main things in an event is how you elevate them. That is a creative choice which is ballsy and should be done more often.
Oh no, I get it. When I say resort, I don't mean like that's all that's left. I meant more every time a writer comes in to do an event. For the most part, they're going, "This is my one chance to write a DC event of this scale. I want to use all the characters I want to use." So they use their favorites. So by their nature, you end up reinforcing all these same, popular heroes over and over because they're their favorites. So it's this kind of self-perpetuating cycle.
I feel that's why Canary becomes Green Lantern in the first one, right? I feel like Taylor really likes Canary based off of Injustice and whatnot, right? And here, this could be the next thing with Mary Marvel, because I remember them trying to do this with her in Countdown, and it didn't work because they corrupted her first and whatnot through Darkseid and this completely off story. But when she does have a moment like this, when she snaps out of it, it made me want to pay attention to Mary Marvel.
Yeah.
Right.
I wonder how like obviously like the bigger creators when they get an event now, they can pick any small character they want and elevate them should they choose. But I wonder, like I think at first, like when someone gets an event for the first time, I wonder like how much free reign they have to go to the smaller characters as in the main roles for the book. I feel
probably not that much because they need the bigger characters to be the selling point.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why I'm saying I would appreciate if they sometimes took some risks.
Well, I like the fact that this was a shock. I've read so many comic books, and when it gets to that, I was completely sideswiped by the fact that that's Mary Marvel and she's gonna save the bus because it looks hopeless, and I'm like, oh, it's horror. This is where this is going. Like we just watched kids get picked off by Mirror Master, and they're just not gonna make it. But no, Mary Marvel shows up, and it's a really cool moment.
I think the reason it works so well is you're not sitting the issue questioning who's narrating it, and I think it is because of that red tint on the color of the narration boxes that you just assume it's Jason.
Yeah,
and because Jason's pretty quiet for most of this issue, so it makes sense. You go, okay, well, we started this series with him in general,
and nothing
so it works that we can kind of have him narrate the end here.
And nothing comes off as like something that sounds to a character or nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you go back and read it, I don't think anything sounds like super Jason either. That is a character for Mary to say either. It works both ways, but nothing about it sticks out as like, oh, that can't be Jason.
Yeah, but it is because of that. It kind of takes you off guard because you weren't expecting a twist reveal.
And that's kind of the wonder of comics, that you can have a bait and switch like that. Because if this is like TV, right? You're gonna recognize the voice of the narrator. And
to go back to the elevating the characters thing I was on, like it may not be as good as the actual reveal page itself, but one of my favorite panels this week is absolutely as she's flying up to face Wonder Woman. That first panel, just that low angle shot of her flying up to meet her in the rain. It's just it feels like it's setting her up to be no. Mary Marvel has a shot. She can take on Wonder Woman maybe.
I really like it because it's using the traditional hero shot for Wonder Woman still, with the low angle looking up and the floating in the sky. It really works.
No, I think this does elevate her. It feels like they're making her a big deal. And of course, she has this sort of the added narration afterwards when she's like, "Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to fight her before." But in the last couple of months, I've been trained by Deathstroke and Shiva and Cassandra Cain. Like I can fight.
So Now I want Mary Marvel to be friends with Cassandra Cain.
Sure.
In mainline. because I want more of this. But no, Mary Marvel is one of those characters that does kind of get overlooked a lot, right? Because there's Freddy's had moments as Captain Marvel Jr. back, he was on different teams, but she's always just kind of the lost Marvel. Now with all the other kids, she's almost the Wendy in Peter Pan, right? Where she has to be the...
I think the sad truth is that the Marvel family in general have just been kind of overlooked for a long time.
Decade or so, right? You had the really slow tease introduction of the Shazam stuff in the Justice League backups in the New 52, and then that was it. That was all we got until this John's Shazam series.
Yeah. And the series has been relatively good. I think it feels disconnected so far from everything else. The Shazam family's not really showed up in anything else or connected to that yet. And I'm sure it will at some point, but at least for now, it's been kind of on its own little corner. So it's nice to see Mary Marvel sort of not only be elevated, but even just get to play with the other characters a little bit. It's just nice. So we get this big fight, and Mary Marvel flies the bus, and the vines open up to let them in. We see Harley and Poison Ivy, along with some of the magic characters. Fate's protecting the place magically.
Tanner and Constantine's there.
Yeah, like I feel like if Taylor had asked Connor, "What heroes do you want meeting them?" These are the three he would give.
It's basically for when this gets its own follow-up section, probably in the next book, which by the way is called Dead Planet. I checked.
There you go. Well,
so
given
this is a great group of characters.
Yeah, given they're coming back to Earth, I feel like we're going to see some of these characters again in the next story. And if not, that's fine. Give me a sequel to this. Give me another 3-issue mini after Dead Planet.
I feel just like them coming back to Earth, and they've kind of hinted about what was going on in the Gotham jungle. I feel like some of these characters are going to show up.
Yeah, they probably are.
Like older Constantine and Zatanna. Maybe one of the kids is taking on the Fate helm or whatever. Like
that said, though, isn't Dead Planet set much further ahead because John and Damian are older?
Well, that's actually interesting because I remember thinking when that was announced, because the first cover that they showed us, Constantine looked like like the same age, whereas John and Damian were older and were like Superman and Batman, and we thought it was really weird. I'm wondering if time's kind of passed differently for them.
Oh, okay.
Which is why this
because
year, Constantine looks normal here.
As we learned in Interstellar, my God, I'm trying to get my joke out. As we learned in Interstellar, time passes quicker when you're a black hole. God damn it.
I was gonna say, but also Constantine wouldn't be one to not put anti-aging spells on himself, right?
He definitely, yeah.
So, but no, and also Ivy and Harley. That's a pretty cool introduction as well. Like Harley sitting on the edge with like a jester hat on. Like, that's a new look for her, right?
It is, and purple hair is new. Because that is very purple as opposed to the usual.
And then, of course,
blue or red.
The final page is the reveal that they've made a statue inside the jungle of the villains who sacrificed themselves to save all the kids. And it says, "Villains, saviors, family, tree lobsters." And that's your final
I like
beat.
the little touch that the girl put her ear.
That got me.
Yeah,
because that makes it seem like a legit memorial, right?
Yeah.
Like she put her to there. It took me a second to realize that Bane also was a good guy because he's the first turned.
That's because that happened in the last issue. That was a while ago.
Yeah,
like 3 months ago.
But the rest of them all go out. Well, and Deadshot too. Although Deadshot and Deathstroke on the same team. Oof. Trying to say those out real quick.
I mean, that's like half of the Suicide Squad books in the last year, like 10 years.
Yeah, right. So, but yeah, this almost functions as a Suicide Squad book too, right? Like, they're on a mission to get there, and they end up sacrificing themselves instead of getting blown up. But yeah, no, it was. And there's also a tree lobster on Creeper, so that was a nice touch as well.
This was like a pretty perfect issue.
Yeah, this was next level. This was we loved the first 2 issues, and I think this final issue took everything we loved about those first 2 and capped off the heartfelt story that because I don't think when we read that first one, because it wasn't really, the villains didn't really come into contact with the kids and start helping the kids properly until issue 2. The first issue they were very separate, so I don't think we expected in that first issue, even though Taylor's very good at pulling at the heartstrings, I don't think we saw exactly what it was going to be doing yet. It didn't quite get there because in the first issue it was Jason and Cass like round up, they find these kids, get Gordon, that stuff. The villains were separate, and then last issue is where they kind of came clashing together. Then this issue is like, oh, here's what the story's really been about. It's about these villains stepping up because the story started with them just trying to save themselves by hiding out in this tree, like with Savage and that, and then by the end it's like, no. They went out saving innocent people. That's how the story ended. So you can't have a different beginning and end for the group of characters quite like you did with these.
Yeah. And I think it works as well because most of these characters have at some point, shown their capacity for humanity and not just being out and out evil at all times, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel like it's a betrayal of character, or or even that it's that much growth for them. It's like, no, this was always within reach for these people.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't recall anything with Creeper, but I've not encountered Creeper as much.
Well, that's the thing with the thing with Creeper though is that he's almost like chaotic neutral Joker. Like he's you never know what you're gonna get with him, but he's generally a good guy.
He's a lot more tragic as well.
Yeah. And like with Bane, the most I've ever liked Bane was in Secret Six, where he was basically a hero trying to whip that team into shape. So that they all work in that way. Even Slade, where like Connor was talking earlier, sometimes he's used as that mercenary that's got to take out Superman, and other times he's like, no, he's running a protection scheme for somebody.
Slade does what Slade wants and what Slade's getting paid to do ultimately.
Right.
But I mean, Deadshot, with time and time again, you've seen stories, about his daughter usually. But the idea of kids with him specifically,
right,
is very baked in.
And then with Grundy, it's a little bit more different just because he's this monster. He leans himself to it like.
Yeah, but even with Grundy, the whole time, it's never like he's evil. He's just Grundy.
A force of nature.
Yeah.
Pointed in direction.
It's not like Grundy usually has a plan to destroy the city and take over. It's just, no, Grundy does what Grundy does.
Man, being how he is, and he can be reborn, I'd love to see a new Grundy pop up. And then when they show back up, there's like a different form of him. I always like when they play with the different forms of him. Like Zombie Grundy in Justice League Dark, or in the Brad Meltzer Justice League, where he came back with an intellect and takes out the Justice League. That was pretty fun.
The issue is phenomenal, and I mean, we've had some books obviously the last few weeks, but not a lot, and this week was also quite quiet, but this is the book that made it feel like comic books are back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the book that that made me go to my comic shop to pick up my stuff. So, which was a nice surprise that, they're actually back to functioning. You can't sit and hang out like you used to, but you can go in, grab your stuff as long as you have your mask on and, hand sanitizer and whatnot. So yeah, and this is a nice one to go back to,
wonderful stuff. I mean, the art, we don't really mention this issue beyond a couple of maybe key pages, but it's because it's the same as the previous two issues.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of the face. It's very Quitely, and I know I'll have people that tell me I'm insane. I'm not a big fan of Frank Quitely, and this reminds me a lot of his faces. So, but it's fine. It never once detracted me, except for maybe the way that Mary's drawn when she's about to say Shazam, and I get what they were going for. It just kind of face looks a bit squishy, but other than that, everything's fine.
Yeah. But they didn't really talk about the fact that the reason why she hadn't Shazammed up is because she was so terrified of becoming zombified as,
Yeah, she kind of hints that something happened with Billy.
Yeah.
Right? And she didn't want to also risk the power because what if it was corrupted? Because she didn't know the extent of...
Yeah, I think it was like... If she was turned into a zombie as she is now, no big deal. Right? But if she's turned into a zombie as Mary Marvel, well, that's a problem for everyone else.
Exactly. So, yeah. All right, what are we rating this then, Matt? We giving it?
This is a 9.5.
Connor?
I'm just slapping the 10 on it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm giving it a 10. I mean, even though the art, because I like the art, the aesthetic of the art, the faces are a little bit here or there, but even with that issue, 10. The feelings don't lie.
Fine.
The feelings don't lie. All right, we'll move on then. I'm going to take a break because you guys can talk about Jimmy Olsen issue 10, Matt Fraction writing with Steve Lieber on the art.
This is all over the place.
It is, and this is a book that has not benefited from the break because there's always so much going on.
It was coming back every time I was getting into a section. I was like, oh yeah, this is what that thing was. So I think I don't think it's any worse than any other issue. I think the break has just hurt it a little bit.
Yeah,
but
well,
it'll be
that's what I
fine
mean,
for the
just 'cause
next couple issues.
There's so much going on and it jumps around so much, but to the point of this one is that you find out why Julian, his older brother, has put a target on Jimmy. And long story short of it, and Connor can get into the more the funnier details here and there, but the long and short of it is Julian's run out of money out of the vast Olsen family fortune by trying to preserve Metropolis. And that the final straw was when Jimmy accidentally destroyed the Metropolis Monarch. And in that, Julian's original plan was actually kind of smart in that as long as that stood where it was, Luther couldn't get into the grid, right? To control people's water, power,
Luther
internet.
owned the land that was underneath it all, which had all those infrastructural elements like electricity and stuff like that. But because there was a cultural landmark there, he couldn't access them because they had to stick with the landmark. It was preserved. By destroying it, Jimmy opened it up for Luther to be like, well, free reign, do what you want with your land now.
It is now. And Julian doesn't like the idea of Luther, because it still goes back to the Olsens versus the Luthers. And they're out of money. And we kind of saw that with Janie. That's why Janie was living in Gotham, putting on, black box theater shows, living the bohemian lifestyle. It wasn't necessarily what she wanted, but that's the life she adapted to. And so the only person whose trust is still active is Jimmy because he doesn't use it.
Yeah, and they don't even know if he's aware that he has it.
Right, and that as long as Jimmy's alive, they can't touch it. But as soon as he dies, Julian can access it.
It funnels back into the family.
The family,
rather than the individual ones.
Right. So this is why he has the target on him, and it doesn't seem to be the main plot because now we still have the aliens that came and invaded Ohio. Right. That's what they are. And it has them stuck on the roof, trying to fight these aliens.
And the aliens very annoyed about gravity on Earth because it's like, well, it's a war here and not, it should be optional, like a real planet.
Right. And stuff. So, and we got a flashback with Porcadillo and how he came across the when they put out a hit on Jimmy, and that was basically how he ended up involved in all this with the detective.
The bit about that was always funny is it started so this was 2 to 4 years ago, and then it's it's his sentencing before he gets sentenced to jail. I sentence you to no less than 2 and no more than 4 years of time, and then it cuts ahead and 2 to 4 years later, and it just always keeps it that vague, and it just got funnier every time.
Matt.
Ow. Jesus Christ. Oh, what were you saying, Matt?
No, just and we got more of them on the roof of the grocery store, and Jimmy's kind of feeling bad, like this is all his fault. Like a lot of this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for him, and that he needs to be the one to remedy it.
So he steals the ship.
Steals the ship, which really pisses off chicks and whatnot. And I finally realized why Dexter wears the bowl on his head, and that's because he's constantly throwing up.
Yeah, the acid blood.
Right, and it didn't click with me initially. So, but so Fraction's starting to tie everything together. I mean, there's 2 issues left, but definitely having that long break in between them with all the different plots coming into play.
Yeah, that probably hurt a little bit. But then you got the ending of Jimmy going to confront his brother in a very elaborate costume disguise, where he is a woman in this dress. Got,
That's right.
The hair. comes down the stairs. Everyone's looking at him / her,
Right.
and because it's like a fancy party that Julian's throwing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes up to her. They start dancing. He bends him over in the dance, and the wig falls off. He's like, "You," and he's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah. Well, and it's too is that he's putting the moves on him because he doesn't realize it's his brother, and so that was pretty funny. But yeah, it's still a pretty good book. The art, Lieber's still solid. Like it's still capturing that Silver Agey vibe, but with a contemporary twist on it.
Yeah, still very funny.
Yeah, and it hit the spot. Like despite having some like remembering issues because it's so dense, it still felt good to read this again. Like I did miss it.
Yeah, me too.
So...
And I'm really looking forward to that because as I was reading this, everything was coming back to me. So I feel like I'm in a pretty good place going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would have been in the other issue.
Right.
So I think excited for the last two.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I hope Fraction can stick around and do not necessarily the same thing, but something similar with maybe some other. I would love a blue and gold book from him.
That would be fantastic.
Like a blue and gold, or throw like a kind of a reunion of I Can't Believe It's Not the Justice League with him, and you have Kai in there and Mr. Miracle and I just think he leans himself to it.
Matt, you're such a goddamn self-parody. I would like a book with Booster Gold, Blue Beetle.
No, but he means that exact Justice League
Gardner.
lineup.
But and
that's a great Justice League lineup, and it's so fun to read. So I'd be all down for it.
Yeah. Fire and Ice and who else was there? There's a couple more. It was definitely a C-level Justice League team. Elongated Man was there too.
It was wonderful for because it was that was
Geffen and DeMatteis.
Yeah, and they leaned into the comedy angle of that team because that's what they are good at.
This reminds me, the Jimmy Olsen book reminds me a lot of that era.
I think they were probably quite a big influence on Fraction. In a way. So Fraction taking on a take on that style of team, doing that style of comedy book like he's doing with Jimmy Olsen. I think that would be fantastic.
Definitely. Yeah. So, what's your rating this one?
I'm going to give it an 8 because I think it probably would have been like an 8.5 if I'd remembered it a little bit better. But
that
hurt a little.
That's I am going to give it the 8.5 because even though I did have the issues remembering stuff, it was like a warm hug, and I miss getting warm hugs right now because you can't. So Jimmy Olsen was a warm hug towards the end.
All right, so Plunge issue 3, written by Joe Hill and art by Stuart Immonen, we'll do next. Of course, this was one where I was worried that I was going to have forgotten a lot of the details. Mm-hmm. Luckily, it all kind of clicked into place fairly quickly once I started reading this one. I don't know how you felt.
And I don't know if because it hits on those kind of Carpenterian tropes, right, that are kind of familiar of the creepy stuff going on the island. But yeah, it did come back really quick. I had to remember what happened on the ship to cause the fire. Like I almost went to pull my last issue, but then through the dialogue that cleared it up real quick. But oh man, this book, I can't wait to read it all as one piece. I know I said that every time, but man, this book is a lot of fun.
I didn't enjoy this one as much.
Oh man,
this one felt really wordy to me. Especially in the middle of the issue, it felt like there was a lot of just words being thrown at me.
I think I enjoyed this issue more than the last one, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough.
I liked it about the same. I'll be the Goldilocks here. Just right.
I mean, I think issue 1's probably still my favorite because it felt so much like the setup to that, the kind of movie that it was.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot more happens here just because it is the third issue out of, what is it, 6 or 7?
6.
6? Yeah, so we're getting to the not quite the climax, but to the peak of where stuff is going bad now. Like, so, but the last was a lot of setup. And yeah, there's a lot going on here that's just creepy. And I'll take creepy over outright scary a lot of the time. Because scary is subjective, whereas creepy you can always kind of feel,
Yeah. So the survivors of the derelict, well, I say survivors, I mean, I think that word maybe needs to be proven still, but they're found in the cave, by the guys, and they're blind. They've got gifts for everyone, including a headset, which kind of comes into it a little bit later in the issue.
Yep.
So that's going there. They've been kind of paying attention and listening to the other characters. On the ship, we get kind of the company man. His stuff here is where he goes full on Paul Reiser from Aliens, where he's like, "Oh, well, what's this going to take? How much is this going to cost us? The fact that our crewmate's like been burned." And the captain's like, "A member of the crew has been burned alive. We're not doing your stupid mission anymore."
You can call another ship from Russia. It's going to take a day, but I'm getting my brothers and everyone else, and we're leaving. That's just it. And then they get the call from the island that they found the survivor, or we found the bodies, right? I forget what the exact terminology was. And he goes, "No, we found them." And it just doesn't make sense because the company man goes, "Well," or someone goes, they should be like 80 years old. Why does he look 40 still?
Yeah, I think it's Moira who says that, because they come and meet them on the beach because that's where she was, because she was in the water last issue. And like, you should be like 80 because you were 40 when you disappeared in 83, 84.
And there's so much here of like with the stuff with the gifts and the story of the wise men, because when they start divvying out the gifts, they talk about how it's like gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
Yeah, they want to see the captain. The captain comes ashore, and they explain that they're going to give them gifts, and they're not making a lot of sense. They're not explaining why they look so young. I mean, they have like, he's got like a joke comment where he says, "Yeah, diet and exercise is why I look so good."
Diet and exercise, but super creepy way of saying it.
Yeah,
and that they're not just blind. They said that they got infected with something that made them blind, but enhanced other things. And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's ominous." So, because they don't seem to have any problem communicating. Like, sure, they can't see, but they're still fully aware of everything that's going on.
Yeah. So because of the storm coming in, they set up camp on the island for the night, and this is where they're getting a lot of this dialogue from these characters. If there's one part where I think it's a bit wordy, it will probably just be when the company man's explaining what all the math, the stuff that, or even before the math, when he's talking about when they found the body in 83, the captain, the fisherman found, where like, there was something in the blood, the DNA that did this and that. There was a lot of big words thrown around in that speech bubble, and I'm like, it never really actually explained, because I was expecting one of the crewmates to go, "Oh, can you put that in plain English for the rest of us? Like, what would that actually do?" And no one ever does, and I'm like, tell me what that does. Tell me.
But see, I took that as these are concepts that aren't necessarily important outside of they seemingly solved this unsolvable equation, right? And then what brought his attention was the kind of math nerd joke of essentially writing hello upside down on the calculator.
Man, math nerds are not funny.
Yeah. Well, of course not. It's math. Like, it's on or off. It's very binary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yeah, so that's how I took that. So yeah, it was kind of wordy, but I could have, like, I had to fight the urge to look up what these were, but then at the end of the day, it's math. Like, if this was a historical thing, where they're like, "Oh yeah, they found the wreck of the whatever," I'd be like, "Oh, let me look." Math, I don't care.
So the old Walkman lets the guy with long hair, like, he's basically hearing people's thoughts, because he's listening to these headphones.
Yeah, I really didn't like the lettering for this. So they do this different thing where it's a really soft font and it's really brown, but they get rid of all punctuation. Now, I don't mind getting rid of the commas and the full stops and stuff. It's okay. You want this feeling of an uninterrupted flow, but getting rid of apostrophes was a huge mistake, because there were multiple words that I read wrong. Like,
but I think
one of the words, I read it as "were," and then I had to reread the sentence. I was like, "Oh, that's supposed to be we're," and like, it's just, it was really frustrating. I was having to reread entire sentences to make them make sense just because there was no apostrophes.
And I think that lends itself to something's not right. Like, even as you're reading it, so the characters are hearing him talk like this.
Yeah, but they would have still heard him say "we're." He wouldn't have said "where."
Right, but it's still bringing attention to that.
I would dispute
saying it differently.
I would dispute this, just in the sense that I never had that problem. The context always gave me, I think.
It was when, like, because "were" was like the second. It was the second word of the sentence. So I hadn't got any context in the sentence yet as to what it was, and it was supposed to be weir, but I did, without the apostrophe, that wasn't clear immediately. So I was like, right, I'm gonna go reread that. So that didn't make any sense. And Eliza, I think you can give this effect without having any punctuation for the flow. So it's just this uninterrupted stream of being creepy. That is fine. I get that, but like I say, the apostrophes like that really did actually, it altered the words significantly as to what he would have been saying.
Well, so that's the first gift. The second gift is a vial of this substance, which apparently could power the state of California for 1100 years. It's
Right.
got that much energy in it. And they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. Nothing can do that. Blah blah blah. And then the third gift, which is kind of what leads to the cliffhanger of the issue, is essentially some item. So one of the guys has been clutching something in his hand, and he's not letting anyone else get to it the whole time.
It's Billy, the Native American guy.
Yeah.
That was kind of their guide up to there, and they gave it to him, and then we didn't really see where he went to, but he came out clutching this thing, and it was very reminiscent of Gollum, right, and his precious.
Yeah,
those are the vibes I was getting.
It's that kind of idea, but to such an extreme degree that to sort of show the main group the example. He says, "Can I have a few of your men to show you something?" Little does the captain know that he's sending them to their death, because they go into a little circle, 3 other people from the ship, and one of the crewmates of the derelict, the woman, sort of claws the guy's hand, so he reveals the item, and the other 3 see it. And we don't get to see what it is, we just see their reaction, and them going, mine, mine, mine. And they basically start fighting to the death over this item. They start biting each other. We see one person get their eyeball ripped. That's the last panel, actually, is the eyeball is ripped out.
It's clearly the One Ring.
Yeah, like whatever it is, and the first mate that should be 80 is like, yeah, this is the gold, this is what this is, and oh man, it's so creepy.
All I'm saying is, makes them extremely possessive, extends their lifespan. It's the One Ring.
It's a fair comparison.
But again, Golem would never give this away, so it's definitely, why doesn't it affect the crew of the Derleth that way? Because is it because they're blind? Is that
they're not seeing it, so
right, right. And on top of it, the captain goes to save his people. He's like, what the hell is going on? And they keep him back, and the first mate tells him, and it's for your own good that we're like, your people are gone now, and if you get a glimpse of it, you'll end up just like them. And oh man, again, seeding stuff out.
I think what's fascinating about this to me is that the story started off as like building up to a monster kind of story, right? And then the more we get into it, it feels like it's hinting at much bigger things. These items all feel like they're like the secret to the math equation that's going to like solve the universe. The pie, essentially. If Darren Aronofsky's pie.
I thought you were talking about, because they also tell the company man that they've solved pi. That's impossible. Pi doesn't end. He's like, oh, we found the ending. And that was the other thing, is like, man. So I'm wondering if the monster isn't just like, because I'm still leaning that these are biological. Like, I don't know if they're alien or from within the earth, but with how we were introduced to Moira and what she was doing at the aquarium, I feel this is some kind of worm and whatnot that's taking over their bodies. But if that's the case, like, how does the math factor in?
Yeah, well, yeah,
what's this gold item?
That doesn't explain the gifts. These 3 items, these 3 special things that.
Right. And again, it still feels like the thing, but it's also its own story. Like, so I can tell where Hill is getting, inspiration from. I mean, the captain is still Captain Carpenter and whatnot, right? But it has become its own.
The ship is the McCready. So
McCready, yeah. Right. So it definitely. Where was I going with that sentence? Anyways, I'm enjoying this book.
Yeah. No, I'm having fun with it. I like this issue more than the last one. I think because the last one, like, I still liked it, but it had some great art and great moments when the boat was on fire and stuff. But I remember saying at the time that it felt like there was so much happening so quick, but after the first issue was so like methodically paced. This issue is kind of in between in terms of pacing, but I think it kind of defined what the story is doing more so. Whereas last issue I was kind of like, wait, so what is this story now? This issue kind of made it clear, okay, we're going down this kind of mystery path, and I have a better idea of what to be excited about and what to be intrigued by going forward, and I think I appreciate that. So, yeah, and obviously Immonen's art's really good.
Yeah, it's his. They're not quite zombies, but they're definitely not human. Like they feel waterlogged without being as bloated. You know what I mean? Like they're gray and whatnot.
I think
Definitely need to give a shout out to Dave Stewart's colors, especially like those pages in the ship where it's bathed in red is
right.
Yeah, because of the red lights. Yeah, I think those pages, and then even just when the captain gets the call afterwards when it's not red anymore. I think the atmosphere in those pages as they're hearing some of this information just feels the most the most enriched.
During this time off, I did rewatch Escape from New York, and it didn't hold up, right? But since going reading the second issue, I felt that the captain would be played by Chris Pratt, like if they ever adapt this. This issue though, I couldn't not hear Kurt Russell's voice as Snake, so it was very distracting.
Yeah, I never got Chris Pratt from the captain.
Yeah, I just either.
No, I just who could wear a beard like that?
I don't think
could be
Pratt
like
has the gravitas for this.
I don't either now, and now I have a trouble of who can play this character.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Escape from New York has a great concept, but I've never found it to be one of the better Carpenter movies. It's always been kind of lukewarm for me.
I loved it when I was 13. 20 years later, it's not as fun as a watch. I actually kind of got bored at sometimes because it's been like I've seen versions of this now. Like sure, at the time it doesn't hold up like some of the other Carpenter stuff of that era, or even like his Assault on Precinct 13. Right?
Oh, Precinct 13 is a better movie.
It's still, I know, but for being as old as it is, it still holds up in modern times. Whereas I don't feel this one does. But anyways, yeah, I was reading the captain as Kurt Russell in that voice, and it works out much better than Chris Pratt. So if you guys if anyone else has recommendations whose voice I could read this in, that's contemporary.
Ron Swanson, obviously.
Oh yeah, I was going to say Nick Offerman would have been my next.
Yeah. Yeah. He does other gravitas.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
Cat Shenanigans.
I thought you were looking over at your movies to pull an actor.
Honestly, I had a lot of problems with devs by the end, but I think Nick Offerman showed he can do gravitas in that role, in that show. So I think that would put him in contention for this kind of role.
Gotcha.
Yeah, what are you rating it?
For me, it's a 6. So it's okay, but I found myself kind of checking out with so many words at points in this issue.
I'm gonna give this a 9. I'm just throwing the high ranks out today.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll give it a solid 8, but yeah, but yes, there you go. That is Plunge issue 3. Losing track of these things, and then there's all the sea dogs at the end as well. Yeah, of course. All right, so Dollhouse Family issue 6. Mike Carey writing with Peter Gross on the art. This is the concluding chapter of this story. So unfortunately, it had its gap, between its 5th and 6th issue. Awkward place for it.
Out of interest, does anyone know where chapter 23 of Sea Dogs is? Because are these the only 2 Hill House books that came out today, or was there another one?
No, it was just these 2.
Just these 2, but there was one last week, though, wasn't it?
Well, it's interesting that the Dollhouse Family has chapter 22, and Plunge has chapter 24.
I feel like the original release schedule, it probably was all right and made sense. It's probably just a gap that's done this.
I just don't know which one 23's in. I mean, I'm not reading it anyway. But...
It's probably definitely burned because that was a few weeks ago.
It could be definitely burned for all we know because it's not Basket and it's not Lolo Woods. So that leaves, unless something, no, because Basket didn't get delayed. Right? Yeah, Basket's next week.
So I mean, I guess it could be in one of those next week.
Yeah,
it could be. Yeah, this could equally be one of those. So anyway, Dollhouse Family. We got the end of the story. We got the sort of the explanation for what the celestial beings fighting at the start and falling to Earth and how that tied into everything.
So I read this and I go, I gotta know it, Pete. And I almost went to our chat to ask you, but I know you hadn't read the books yet because this was the first thing I read this week. I was very excited, and So I got to know how you feel about the celestial being element.
No, I actually like the celestial being element.
Okay.
The idea of this being this eternal fight between these two entities, and essentially what we find out in this issue is that the evil being, which was the woman, or the one that appeared to be the woman for the for the man, is basically been rebirthing herself through all of these descendants of this family. Every single person has a little bit of her inside them, so she lures them into the house and then takes it out of them in the black room, and then they're stuck in the house after that. But the house itself, of course, is also part of them. Now, why the afterbirth of the first kid created a dollhouse? I mean, he just kind of said, the cat said that happened. I don't know if there's really a why so much.
Well,
but...
I mean, I guess it's just the point of, instead of pulling it out of someone to form part of its body, it just went, right, well, we need a form to exist in, across time, till we get more descendants.
Yeah, I suppose.
So Dollhouse will do.
Because the cat that popped up at the end of last issue turns out to be the Celestial who was fighting this thing, and the cat offers help and says, "This is what you need to do. This is how we're going to fight," and so on, so on. So it becomes about her going in to save her daughter, and we see the parts of the Celestial, because the Celestial being she's about to escape. She's becoming whole, and it's just at that point where the boyfriend splits open the house and the cat eats the Celestial being.
Yeah, that was really pretty great.
Unique stuff. So they've got this metal that they got from the cave,
which is the sword of the celestial being, which is so metal. I love that so much. And that leans itself into mythology as well, of different things. It's like one of those stories to explain meteorites. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So I think it's either on Avatar or Korra. There's a meteorite sword, right?
Yeah, Avatar. Yeah.
Okay, so that's based off of a real life Japanese sword that they folded out of meteorite metal, and that was the first thing I thought of. That's what this metal was.
I don't remember that. I remember the unobtainium. I don't remember any meteor swords.
I've read that the meteor sword from Avatar, oh god damn you!
Matt didn't get that joke at first.
I was just waiting for him to get to it, and then he said the last, and he went, "Oh shit, wrong Avatar."
Yeah, unobtainium. That's because I've watched, and I haven't even watched a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it stuck with me more than Jim Cameron's Avatar, which I've seen once in theaters. So, anyways,
I saw Avatar 4 times in theaters. No regrets.
Nerd. Anyways,
I didn't see it in theaters.
Yeah, either did Ashley. No, she doesn't want to watch it.
I watched it once, a few years ago. Well, probably like 5 or 6 years ago now. But I mean, it's been a while. And I watched it and went, it was fine.
Yeah,
right? It's not bad. It's fine.
Sidetrack. The reason I haven't watched it since is I don't want to ruin the theater element, because it really was a lot of, it was next level seeing it in IMAX 3D, immersion, right? It's not going to be the same on my TV at home.
It's a similar thing to what the problem was with Dunkirk a couple years ago. That doesn't hold up out of the cinema, and I suspect that Avatar, I might have enjoyed it more in the cinema, possibly. The spectacle.
I was bored at Dunkirk in the cinema, so I don't even want to know what it's like at home.
Oh, it's not good.
Yeah. Anyways,
for the record, I have watched Avatar at home and still enjoyed it. Just
yes, of course. Right. Anyways, so the metal that the original, guy in the family, Cordwainer's dad, was looking for were pieces of
the spear, the
sword, the spear.
A spear,
I love that they use it to. Okay, well, we can't attack it, but we can seal it in that room, and it's like, okay, this should work. This is solid. And then it's just like, you idiots! I'm the house, and why do I need to use the door? Right. And it just bursts out, and that's a great moment.
Which wasn't the plan, but I like though that they got her to monologue, right? Yeah. So then the boyfriend can come through with the axe, and the cat can eat the creature, which I thought was super super cool. I like that a lot. But as they're basically melting down all of this metal, the daughter Una, who's lost her arm in the bombing a couple issues ago, sticks her hand into the metal as almost like a a secondary means,
Yeah.
right? Like it goes bad. She has something that can stop this.
I love that
creature.
she does it when no one's watching, and
Yeah.
when they turn her around, she's got hand behind her back, and she's like looking off the side, like nope, no, nothing.
Yeah, but
happens.
we can see it sort of glowing because she's put it in the molten, because they're melting down metal, so it's really warm, obviously.
Right, and I just like that shows what type of character she is.
I
right?
think when I noticed about this section is that this is the first time in the entire book where the characters inside the house didn't just feel like cookie like presences. They actually felt, because there's one point where two of them have a conversation about like, do they want to not be in the house anymore? Like, and Cordwainer actually talks about remembering his experience and how he got here. It's the first time they actually felt like real characters, I think.
I think that's kind of notable because we've seen them as real characters in the real world, or some of them, right?
Yes.
And they were definitely characters in those instances. I think inside the house where we've seen them, they've just been resigned to their fate inside the house, and it's not until now where they're like, oh no, we can fight
we don't
back.
have
maybe we can be something else, that they start to become characters again. I think that's pretty interesting.
So that is interesting because the cat's basically like, I should actually just burn this entire planet to, because the infection's been here. We have to
cleanse it,
have to cleanse it.
Gotta cleanse it with fire.
We have to cleanse it with essentially galactic-sized hand sanitizer. and make a run for it. But he's like, no, these humans help me. So he instead of just leaving, he actually rewrites the timeline, and so the couple still meet each other, they still have sex, but the one difference that's happened is that a part of him, the good celestial, seems to be in, and amusingly, the hand of the baby is still different.
Because
she dipped her hand in that metal. It's like, no, that's part of her now. I can't get rid of that. So she's got a hand to fight with. So this has got a sequel down the line, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, cool. Because the final line is, "I cannot wait to teach her." So she's going to be like the daughter of not only this couple but also this celestial with this extra power because this metal's like infused into her arm.
She could punch the demons to death.
This could actually be a really sort of straightforward just story about some sort of girl who grew up to be like a demon slayer.
Like no, you could do a sequel of this where it is just demon slayer girl as your story.
Yeah,
very straightforward in comparison. Don't you dare.
What could we compare that to? What could we compare teenage girl demon slayer? Man,
I hope it gets a spin-off where a vampire goes to LA to start a private detective.
Yes, that's it. The hit television show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It's funny that this is in Hill House, and from what I understand about it, the Stephen King story, it's a very similar ending in the book with how Pennywise is defeated and kind of it rewrites kind of history.
Oh. Yeah. For some reason I heard The Thing and I'm like,
oh no,
this didn't happen in The Thing. What are you talking about, Matt? I don't know. I heard The Thing.
I said it.
It still thinks we're talking about Plunge, apparently.
Well, it and Thing are both pretty, basic, simple words. I guess
I'm pretty sure if there wasn't something called The Thing, that's might have been what Stephen King named it, was Thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, instead of it. But anyways, from what I understand, that the movie didn't really touch on as well as this kind of happened. So I kind of find it funny that that's one of this is very much the same kind of themes of good and evil at perpetual war with one another and humans kind of getting in the way, right?
Yeah, I did not expect this book to be a really elaborate origin story.
No. Me neither.
Which is essentially what it is by the end. It's like, no, this is an origin story for a future book for this girl. Demon Slayer.
I remember getting the first solicitation for this and being like, oh, that could be interesting. I didn't realize it was going to be a book that I really, really enjoy.
I remember at the time I was like, well, I was into it because this is the team that did a lot of Lucifer. And I love that book. It's phenomenal.
Right.
I can actually, at the end here, I can actually see some elements of kind of stuff they did late in that Lucifer run with again, another young girl who acquired some powers, godlike in that case.
Right.
But I can see some kind of connective threads thematically in their work here that excites me, because it's like, oh, that was so good, especially once it got to that stuff. It became next level. So this here excites me to see what they do with this in the future.
Yeah. So there you go. What we're going to... I mean, I suppose we can talk about it as a whole a little bit, because I liked the book quite a bit. I did have some issues. Some of the flashback stuff, I think, in the middle of the book, while obviously establishing some of that story is important for the sake of the end game. I almost wish it was a bit more just kind of succinct and to the point with it, rather than giving it, dedicating like half of issues to telling some of those stories. I don't know if we needed all of that in some cases, but I do kind of like how it came together with the Celestial sort of backstory here at the end. So
yeah, well, I like how it does that, and then it shows how the Celestial changes time, and like instead of her killing her dad, the dad agrees to get some help, right, and she gets to be somewhat normal, and so it just, for all of her trials and tribulations, she's kind of is still the hero in her own story, right? Because it was through this that she got to go do everything to set it right.
The events, the circumstances are different, but the core beats of her life, the good things, like her daughter and this relationship, they still happen. So it doesn't ruin any of that for her.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's good.
All right, what are you rating it, Matt?
I'm gonna give this I'll go 8.5.
Karl?
8.5 from me too.
Yeah, I'm not quite as hard. I'll go with a straight 8, I think, on this one. But this is probably one of my favorite issues of the book. Maybe my favorite issue of the book. So
yeah, I think me and Matt have liked it more than you.
Yeah.
The whole time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, not by like a huge amount, but kind of it's always been like a point ahead or whatever.
Yeah.
I definitely gonna get the collected when it does come out eventually. Of this one. This is a fun story that I think I could give to somebody that's like, I like horror, but I'm not so much about comics. What could you recommend? And I'd be like, here you go. Enjoy this.
All right. So looking at digital first then from this past week, none of which I read except the main one we're going to sort of start with, which is the Tom Taylor DCeased. What's it called again?
Hope at World's End.
Hope at World's End.
Mouthful of a title.
So it's basically Jimmy's perspective, Jimmy Olsen, of course, I'm talking about, of the deceased stuff happening and him sort of noticing and taking photographs and essentially becoming a war photographer and teasing kind of what the story of this, which is a 24-part story. So obviously
14, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, 14. Yes. I did the opposite there in my head with the math. What I was thinking is that each one's a half of an issue's worth. Even I mean, it's 22 pages, but it's really 11
half
pages.
So yeah, it's like 7 full traditional issues.
So what I meant to say is that it's 7 issues, so it's 14 parts digitally, but I ended up doubling instead.
Yeah, and it's weird because obviously they're coming out every 2 weeks, so it's twice a month. So it's essentially 1 issue's worth a month.
Yes. I mean, I am kind of excited by the tease at the end here, which is the war, the anti-life war, which is setting up. This first issue is kind of an interesting one in that it is just this sort of almost tone piece of like Jimmy's experience of the start of everything.
Yeah, it's nice seeing Jimmy kind of stepping up, realizing what's happening, stopping them using their phones, and when Clark shows up, it's like, why don't you use your watch? He's like, I figured you had bigger things to worry about than me.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part of this is when he slaps the phone out of Kat's hand. It was like, no phones, none. I saw what it did to Perry because he doesn't exactly know what this is, but he knows that's bad.
He saw the pictures. He saw, because obviously he's a photographer. He had his camera. He snapped some, and he saw, okay, the connective tissues, everyone was staring at a screen, so let's get rid of that.
Yeah,
right.
I think maybe it hurts this because again, it's half the size of an issue, right, in terms of its page count, and I think what hurts this issue is that so much of it is just kind of almost like reiterating what the story of DCeased is for new people who didn't read it, because there's stuff towards the end, especially where he's like, okay, then Superman did this, and Dinah became Green Lantern, and blah blah blah. It's kind of just recapping a lot of stuff.
It kind of is a recap, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of an unfulfilling first part of the story, unfortunately. But I am definitely going to read this because it's Tom Taylor.
It's a recap that is a little unfulfilling. I think the moments that focus on Jimmy specifically are really good and strong.
Yeah.
When after that moment, someone's like, "Hey, can you handle this? Can you look after them?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got it." Clark having that trust in Jimmy is really nice. So to have that kind of those moments are really solid. And then the back half of the issue is kind of just DCeased recap, and I guess it's important but it is a little bit like, okay, well, we already know all this. So
yeah, it's unfulfilling for us. I'm looking forward to part 2.
It says next prelude to the anti-life war, so that's I'm assuming that's going to be kind of this 14 parts as a whole is going to be the build.
Yeah, is it?
Maybe some aftermath.
I feel like it is the anti-life war that we're building to. I mean, is that the story in this, or is that the story in the next DCeased, and this is just companion stuff to it?
No, I think he'll be in this. I think because next prelude implies to me that, okay, we'll have maybe a couple of issues of the prelude building up to it, and then that will be the main bulk of these, 14 issues. Maybe the remaining 10 or so will be.
And of course, we should mention that on this page where he's saying, "Oh, so tomorrow could be the last day. Tomorrow, the greatest heroes left on Earth try to halt the anti-life army," and we see like Black Adam and Black Manta and
someone with wings.
Someone with wings. It's hard to tell who.
Yeah, the wings look like Hawk wings, but the hair, there's no helmet.
Who's the big guy? I mean, if he is actually big, this might just be a perspective thing. But...
I don't know. I'm trying to tell by the scars on his face. Because there's clearly scars running across his face there.
It looks like
it almost could have been like Deathstroke.
It looks like glasses almost. It almost looks like Hugo Strange to me, but I don't know why he would have those scars and why he'd be that big. So.
Yeah, we'll find out as we go. I'm sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the whole point is with Jimmy going, I never thought I'd be a war photographer, and so that's what this is going to be. Which, by the way, experience.
He's got the punished Xander look. He's got the eye patch.
Yep.
Yeah.
So just in case one Buffy reference wasn't enough for this show, there's another one for you. Have it.
Yeah. They're throwing them at you this week.
Yes. So it's okay for what it is. I trust Taylor though enough that I'm in for the whole thing. Like
it feels like an essential part, right? Just for in general saying it up for people who are new to this.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, it's fine.
Because even with all these other digital first stop, or we've got more books and we're not doing the digital first section, I'm going to keep reading this and keep talking about it, even if it's just a small little thing, just to go alongside the main second book, which is coming.
Well, and also we're getting gifted. I don't know how you guys feel about Nguyen, but I really like Dustin Nguyen's art.
Oh, I do as well.
I want to see how he's going to handle some of the.
There's a lot of people announced to be on the book over the run of it. He's not doing all of it.
That's a shame.
Damn it.
I'm going to see if I can quickly find a list, because I definitely did see like a handful of the artists.
So I'd like to see some of his zombified designs to see how that gels with his style.
I do like what his work here is though. It's solid.
I like one quite a bit. It varies. I mean, sometimes he's less or more suited to a certain thing, but
okay, here we go. Dustin Nguyen, Renato Guides, Carmine Di Gino and Marco Thaler. So, I mean, at least 2 out of those 4 names I recognize and like a lot.
Let's hope the other ones are up to stuff.
Cover art by Ben Oliver, Francesco Mattina, and Yasmin Putri. So, pretty covers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I didn't read any of the other digital first, so you guys can.
I only got around to reading Flash, so because I read other stuff this week.
Well, I'll start there, and then I can hammer through the rest of them real quick.
Yeah, Flash is the only one that I was wanting to catch up on and then didn't. Yeah. So now I have 2 of those to read.
Yeah. Flash pretty good.
Yeah.
It's it works as a I don't say semi origin, but it hits into Zoom and how he'll be a temporal threat. And we got to see Jonah Hex because
Barry, when he ran into the timeline to get back at the end of last issue, he ends up in the Old West, and they're hiding it immediately. He's there, and cowboy hat on a horse, and his face is all in shadow, or he's turned to one side, and you're like, you know the whole time who it is. But,
he's in the Old West, so he can go just help Doc Brown and Marty get back to the future then, since he can get to 80 miles per hour.
Different time. They're not in 1885. This is before.
This is 1867.
Damn it.
This is post Civil War. Nice try though.
He's like to Jonah Hex, like, what year is it? So it tells us straight up.
Yeah, it's just because you said Old West, and I thought the first thing I thought of was Doc and Marty trying to get the train going up to 88 miles per hour.
That's the first thing that springs to mind for you for Old West.
Hey, long before I ever saw a good Western, Back to the Future 3 was like the one Westerny thing I watched as a kid.
Clint Eastwood.
I mean,
Those that don't know.
the
No. That's what Marty gives
oh
his
yeah,
name as.
yeah, you're right, yeah.
All right. So, anyway, Zoom shows up and spooks the horse of Jonah Hex. It gets thrown on top of him. He thinks that they're circus folk because of the way that they're dressed. And it's a nice Jonah Hex. If they want to have Gale write a Jonah Hex digital,
I'd be all for that.
please. Yeah, because Jonah Hex is
Jonah
one of the
Hex?
characters I really want to read, and it's hard to find like a good place to start.
You can
I know.
the New 52 All-Star Western was pretty solid. You can jump on at that.
Was it? Okay. Might do that.
There's a Jonah Hex series before that as well that kind of
Mhm.
basically just morphed into All-Star Western.
Okay. I'll
the other way
have to
around.
do that.
Remember,
I will say, don't ever watch that movie. That
I
movie
plan-
is, don't. I did last summer. I don't. Don't recommend.
I don't really
No amount of Josh Brolin. Anyways, so Barry tells Zoom that he has this chrono device given to him by Shift, and that's his plan. That whatever Zoom plans to do, Barry can show up a split second before and stop him.
Yeah.
Zoom, of
And
course,
we just
does not like that.
have a sequence of Barry running through the timeline.
Mhm.
He
And we
meets
see
the first boy, and then the last. We see
Anthro.
yeah.
Which is pretty fun.
Yeah. He meets. We have he learns of other flashes from other worlds, and we see he's holding Jay's helmet.
Yep, ran into one of him, and then a little girl stops him.
It's like, you told me I have to stop you. I have to be here right now, and from the future, and here you go, and gives him a Legion ring.
Right. I immediately thought of XS because of the Legion tie, and then not the version from the TV show, and how disappointing that was for me. But I mean, she's giving him a Legion ring.
Yeah,
right?
and then he zooms off, and she says, "Good luck, Granddad."
Oh man! And then he goes off into like this Arctic wasteland, where him and Zoom fight, and he's threatening to go visit Iris, right? And then they run through time, and you see all these different, it's a really fun, spread of these, man, the pinks and the blues with the reds and the yellows.
Absolutely,
it's really well composited.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have Enemy Ace on there. You have Sergeant Rock. You have Shiny Knight, and then the Demon. And I thought this was a nice bit of cultural perspective out of Gail Simone, that the pieces that they keep landing in are like flashpoints of combat. Because that's another thing Barry brings up. These moments that he keeps being drawn to, he says they're almost like off ramps in time, and he calls them flashpoints.
Yeah, flashpoints of combat. If that's what we use to define history, I hope we can do better in the future
someday.
And the idea that it's right. Yeah, we mark history by all these places. I mean, even when we talk about Joan Hex, it was right after the Civil War.
Right, exactly.
That's
instead of saying
that's how we mark it.
Right, and so I thought that was a nice little piece from her in a book that's just kind of fun, right? And it's out of continuity really with the rest of the Flash. So, but Zoom and Barry go at it, and Iris is there, and he sneakily hands her the ring to get her away from Zoom. And I thought that was a fun piece, because then she floats up, and then Barry just goes to town on his face.
Absolutely wails on him, yeah.
Yep, and goes to put him back, and Iris floats down, and she kind of throws some moves on him, and she's like, I'd give you a kiss, but I have a boyfriend. Which Barry's like, oh, you do? All right, well, good, very lucky indeed. So it ends on a high note, but it definitely doesn't, like Connor hinted at earlier, it doesn't feel like this is the last of it.
I hope there's more at some point. It feels like, no, this functions as an ending to this story.
Right.
But I want more of this Flash. Simone writing it. This has been so much fun.
Yep. And again, she's not ever a person, like, even though she's written for DC for a very long time, I never put her up there with like Jeff Johns or even Tomasi that plays with history. Like this just shows how much DC history she just used for a flash book.
She knows it, and I think it says that maybe it's restraint on her part in the other stuff that she does, rather than incapable of it.
And see, but now I just say that, and then I realize she put one of the Blackhawks in Birds of Prey.
She did, yeah.
Right. So like it's been there. It just like you said though, it's not a well she goes to. She usually just does original stuff. I mean, she made me care about Catman. Like Catman wasn't a character I really had ever heard of.
Yeah.
And then Gale pulls him into Secret Six, and he's a really great character. So yeah, more of her. I think just in general, I could use more Gale writing DC again, like an ongoing, or even if there's just a series of these. This was a really fun book.
Yeah, this is great. I really enjoyed this. I'm gonna miss not having Flash next week. Well, no, I will, because it'll be Jeff Parker. I'll read it.
Jeff Parker's
this Flash.
Yeah, Jeff Parker's pretty good. I've been wishing for a long time that he was on more DC work, like an ongoing or something.
I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I'll just be brief on these other ones. The Batman ones by Mark Russell. Connor pointed me that issue 5 is by him, but he also did issue 4. So I went back and read it. Issue 4 was about Bruce Wayne helping bring down fellow billionaires, like via legal means. And he basically puts himself undercover and goes to jail. And it all ends up being a plot by the Joker to, kind of mess with Gotham by having them, he ends up breaking the billionaires out and whatnot. And it was pretty good. It was typical Mark Russell with something to say, about like, there's always that criticism of Batman. How come he doesn't do more as Bruce Wayne, like in society? This was kind of an answer to that he almost can do more as Bruce Wayne, because as a billionaire, he's almost outside of the law, and that doesn't allow him.
Not surprising at all that this is a Mark Russell story.
No, right? And then the issue 5 is a story with guest starring Harley Quinn and Nightwing, and Harley straight up, villain for hire Harley, and that there's a mob lawyer who they found out isn't actually a lawyer. He never passed the bar, so he doesn't have client privileges, which means when he goes to court, he can say everything about everything he helped. So the mobs in Gotham are trying to take him out, and so one of the mobs hires Harley, and Batman's trying to keep the mob lawyer safe, and he, it ends up being a story about trust, because he has to go to Nightwing, and the cop that Gordon puts on, to watch this guy, Gordon trusts. He's like, oh no, this guy's been a cop forever. Batman's like, can you trust him? Trust is a hard thing to come by. Of course he can't. He ends up being one of the guys that, the mob lawyer was working with. And so, you end up getting some fun sequences with Harley and whatnot, but ultimately it's Nightwing coming in to make the save.
This sounds more traditional Batman rather than the other issue that was very Russell sounding, but it sounds fun.
Yep. Yeah, like it was fine. I don't feel like in my weekly reading, because I read these kind of early in the week, like had I known what they were before, I kind of would have skipped to have some more time, like maybe finish Planet Heist or some more, X-Men Red or whatever. But again, they were fine, nothing wrong with them. And then the last one is, I have 2 more real quick. Superman is first of a 2-part that Venditti's doing. That's kind of like
format already.
Yeah, shifting the format. It's awesome because Titano shows up, who's the the big ape King Kong like guy.
Sure.
And Superman's fighting him through the city, and Luthor's keeping an eye on him. And it turns out that Luthor has put stuff in the city using Toyman's tech that brings Titano down, unbeknownst to the rest of the city. So now, like, these cameras that are at every stoplight turn into guns, which of course Superman's not okay with. But how is he gonna, deal with that? And then the Daily Planet starts running a story about this, and how Perry wants to know how anybody missed this with everything that's been going on. So, and Luthor starts basically fighting crime with this new tech, which doesn't sit well with Superman, until a minor robberies going on, and they target the guy that's kind of running out with very little cash. But as Clark, Clark jumps in front of the laser and takes it, and that's where it goes off. Same art by Pelletier, which again he does a really good Superman. Titano looks great. It's just cool to see a giant gorilla attacking Metropolis.
I'm shocked
Superman,
that you enjoyed that.
yeah, right. But yeah, again, it's decent. Again, Superman's not the the Man of Tomorrow. It's not the greatest, but it's still fun Superman, especially when I don't have any right now, like any port in a storm. And this is a nice port. Finally.
I think it's funny just how many of these digital first Matt is reading right now. It's like he keeps saying he wants to cut down, but because he's got less books right now, he's reading like what 5 digital first books that are essentially full comics.
But it helps that they're divvied out through the week, so it's not just one man. So once Wednesday hit, most of mine, like the only one that really caused problems was Flash, where I got that read in between, because that comes out on a Friday.
But all the others are like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right, so I have stuff to read. Right, but then Swamp Thing is more Mark Russell, but it's the company Sunderland has started an active war against Swamp Thing, and they're starting to bring in new types of weaponry. So they bring in these drones and they drop a bomb on him, and they think they got him, but Swamp Thing just keeps shifting to the next nearest plant life, and then they bring in napalm. And it's ever escalating until finally they're in New Orleans itself, and they're bringing in soldiers, and Swamp Thing's trying not to kill them, but also, he's running trouble where the military decides to strike with a nuclear bomb, despite any other, warnings and stuff. So Swamp Thing goes out to this island in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and it drops, and it looks like it's at the end of him. And you find out that this was all a simulation run by the government at behest of Sunderland. And Sunderland, of course, their owner is friends with the president and has donated a lot to the cause and wants the government's help in dealing with Swamp Thing. And the general that he's put in charge of talking to the guy from Sunderland is like, yeah, we ran the simulations and it always ends up bad for everybody. So you guys are on your own at dealing with Swamp Thing. I'm sorry, but as of right now, we can't do anything to get involved. And he goes to put the simulation, to file it away in a binder, and it goes to this like almost bookcase locked in this vault that it's a bunch of the other heroes, that they have simulations based off the same of how it's going to go, and that of course the government has plans to deal with all of them in case something were to happen. It's just how far do they want to get involved. It's still something that I like. This one was a little bit unconventional, I guess, because it's not an actual story that's going on or playing off of the cult from the last issue, which I was excited to see how Swamp Thing's gonna deal with that. But I know, very, very, very enjoyable. That's it. All the digitals. That's it.
Yes, yeah. Up to you guys if you want to do a little elsewhere section. If you have books you read this week, I did not.
I read stuff.
I haven't played Monster Train. I will not talk about it, but I'll let you know I've been playing Monster Train.
That's not a real thing.
It is a real thing.
It is a real thing.
Oh, wow.
I am tempted to get it, though, come payday, because it looks kind of fun. Is it as fun as it looks?
It is. It's a bit on the easy side at first, but there's 25 difficulties, so I'm,
Are they kind of like the Ascension levels?
Yeah, the basic Ascension, yeah.
Okay, cool, I'm in.
There you go. All right, what you got?
What'd you read real quick?
So I've a couple of different things. I started working my way through the the young adult graphic novels that DC have been publishing.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the Raven one, the Mira one, and the Catwoman one.
Okay.
Because I think that's the order they were published in. So that's why I read them in that order. The first two I liked a lot. Raven and Mira were pretty fantastic. Catwoman I thought was just okay. That's Under the Moon is what it's called. That one wasn't as strong as the other two. It didn't feel it had as strong a direction at points. It just it was a little bit weaker overall, but not bad. Still like a perfectly fine read, but the others were really strong. And then the only other thing I read that I actually want to was I read Kieran Gillen's 3. Which is not a typical Gillen comic. This is a straight up historical kind of adventure with no like supernatural bent or anything like that. There's no spin on it. This is ancient Sparta, kind of right at the end of Sparta's reign of power and kind of them being a power in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a look at their. He writes essays in the back of a lot of his issues, and he said in the first one, this came about when he was reading 300 again at some point, and he got annoyed with it, not because it's bad, but he basically he'd been to the pub, he'd had a few drinks, and he was annoyed that it was Sparta, they're this glorious defense of the West, they were the shield of the West against Persia, yet they were terrible people to their slaves, and the book kind of just doesn't mention that. And pretty much
Right.
no other depiction of Sparta in popular media does. So he was like, I want to do something with that, from the slave's perspective, essentially.
Yeah, I do have to pick apart that sentence a little bit. They were terrible people to their slaves. I mean, they had slaves. I mean, they're already. I'm already at terrible.
But in the context of
that was
where we are in the world, like they were
but also
worse.
That gets covered up when you talk about ancient Greece, is the whole slavery, aspect.
Democracy, full of slaves, but generally, as a rule, were treated better than the Spartan slaves, which I think was the point here.
Right, and I mean, don't forget, Greece was constantly at war with one another. I mean, the whole Peloponnesian War, and that's why the Spartans versus the Athenians, and this whole
it's a whole thing. It was a wild time. But you basically, if you picture the 300 Spartans, on the march up the mountain, and they're all carrying their own shields, which not a single one of them carried their shield. They had one or two slaves each carrying their shield.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with 300 and culture, and that whole, the macho.
It's kind of glorified them.
Yeah, and yes, they were a really efficient, because of their culture, warrior squad, right? But at the same time, it wasn't this Frank Miller idea of them,
right? And that's what this book is essentially taking a look at the rest of their society as it's crumbling around them, essentially. But it's like properly well researched. Like he did genuine historical research. He spoke to a lot of people, professors of it. I have
to read this. How many issues is this?
It's 5 issues. The first issue has an essay in the back of him explaining kind of how it came about. And then the other 4 issues are actually an interview he did with a professor on the subject, and it's a fascinating read. I think Matt would really.
These are available digitally. It's not like the Brubaker essays were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as a rule, Gillen's back matter is always included in the single issues, digital or physical, but it's not usually included in the trades. From maybe I'm wrong on this particular one because I haven't checked, but. That's consistent across most of his other works.
I'll have to look for this because it sounds right up my alley, and all of that. It's why I love the Brian Wood Viking stuff, Northlanders.
Yeah.
Because he got into all the different aspects. I mean, the second story in that is about a Irish Catholic warrior fighting the government of the Vikings instilled in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's not really about the Vikings as the first one was, right? It's the whole culture around it and why it's different. So this sounds kind of like that. But
I think you'd really enjoy this. Like I say, it's very much a historical fiction, but it's well researched. It's as accurate as reasonably can be without detracting from the story, because at the end of the day, it is still a story.
Right.
It's good.
Yeah, I think we can learn more if you tell a narrative story using historical facts rather than trying to make a historical fact into a story. Yeah, right. So I mean, again, giving Brian Wood a lot of compliments here, but his whole American Revolution story in Rebels was like that, where these are, where these are things that have happened, but the family that he uses to tell the story through is, based off of archetypes.
Yeah, I think if you're a fan of that Brian Wood historical fiction work that he's done, you'd probably enjoy this book from Gillen. So it's from the early 2010s, right before he went into Wiccan and Vine.
Right, I'm gonna have to check this out.
All right, that's good, awesome. All right, well, that takes us to the part of the show where we pick our favorites of the week. Now, admittedly, it's a weird week again. Only 4 books total of the new stuff. I myself only read 3 of them.
And let's be honest, DCeased is a clean sweep. Clean sweep.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Where did Connor go?
Here we go.
Let's just continue like nothing's happened. Connor's camera disappeared. Now you've swapped. And now you've swapped. What is this bullshit?
This happened right before we started recording. Pete, when you walked off somewhere, me and Matt, and he was like, "Oh, I can't see you. Your camera's not there." So I turned it off and on, and now I've frozen again. What is going on?
I feel like
for once it's not me, and I'm happy.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
I need to get that freeze frame there for all the thumbnails with Connor's face. I can put that freeze frame there, making his kissy face. All right.
I can really see my Northlander books right there now. Wow.
It's telling me Skype's telling me I can't connect to my camera anymore until I restart Skype.
Well, you know what? It's fine. We'll just finish. We're literally right at the end. We'll just finish like this.
Yeah.
So, anyway, favorites of the week. As Matt's kind of into Windows at the same time. So, yes, the top 5 books, or in this case, top 4, because that's all we read. And we can also do best panel / moment, best art, and best cover. So I will ask. Oh, there you go. I will ask.
This is so stupid.
Matt, what was your panel / moment of the week?
Do I do Unkillables? Do I do Plunge? Do I do Dollhouse Family? I mean, there's so many to choose from.
Oh, it's not. There's one moment. There's one moment.
No, I know. But do I do Mary Marvel or do I do Cheetah? Like,
okay, both valid choices.
There's 3 moments from DCeased. Yeah. So if you want to, should we just share out the 3 moments from DCeased?
Okay, go for it. Yes.
Okay, so I'll take Mary Marvel then, since I'm going first. Her appearance.
We don't have to take different ones. We can have the same one.
We could, but we might as well just represent all 3 great moments at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know what the third one is off the top of my head. I'll probably know when you say what it is, though.
It's Tree Lobsters.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, no, I'm going with Mary Marvel. The Shazam reveal was it. That hit me. The cheetah moment was great. I loved the cheetah moment. Like they're both 10 out of 10 moments.
That was my other one. Was Good Kitty.
Good Kitty's great.
Yeah, okay. Those are the
Shiva
moments.
Also, Shiva ripping out her own heart to save her daughter.
All right,
pretty metal.
Best cover of the week, and of course I'm not looking at them as I asked this.
Yeah. I'll go Plunge, probably because there's a Gary Frank.
Yeah, Plunge is pretty good. Yeah.
But the regular Plunge one is pretty good too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll go with the Frank Plunge. I'll do that.
I'm just trying to have a look at them. I think I just like the DCeased cover, to be honest. The regular one.
That's fine.
Regular too. No issues from me.
Okay. All right. Best art then of the week. I'll jump in and say Plunge. I think on this one for me at my 3 books.
Yeah, I'll go Plunge. Lieber's pretty. I wouldn't say pretty close because it still is imminent, but that was up there too. Yeah, I'm gonna Plunge.
I am gonna go with Lieber for Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, good. Good.
All right, well, rank your books then. Matt, go.
1 Unkillables, 2 Plunge, 3 Dollhouse Family, 4 Jimmy Olsen. They're all real close though.
Yeah, Connor.
DCeased, Dollhouse, Jimmy Olsen, and Plunge, I guess.
It's always going to be the negative one, isn't it? My number 1 is DCeased, number 2 is Plunge, number 3 is Dollhouse Family. Nice and straightforward. Okay, there you go. That has been the books. I can tell you what's coming next week on the show. Now, usually this is alphabetical order. It's not this week for reasons. I won't explain it. Just go with us. So next week we got The Flash 754, Justice League 45, Aquaman 49, Teen Titans 41 is also out, Supergirl 41's out. Of course, that's digital only. Keep that in mind. We got Batman Beyond 43, Terrifics 27, also digital only. Keep that in mind. Basket Full of Heads issue 7, Suicide Squad issue 5. We got the Lolo Woods issue 5, and then there's a couple of the sort of the Books of Magic 19's out, Last God issue 7's out, He-Man Master Universe issue 6 is out. That's the sort of your tangential books.
Yeah. Depending on how these go, I might not have as many digitals to read next week.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
It's a lot.
But it means we have more juicy stuff to talk about, which is nice. I am excited for a few of these things. I'm excited to read Supergirl. I'm excited to get that last issue of Basket Full of Heads. Obviously, I'm excited for Suicide Squad. How
And Flash. You love the Flash.
Hey, you're reading it too. You're catching up.
Is Matt going to be caught up for the next issue?
Maybe.
He is. We're on the home stretch. He has to now because we're going to finish.
Hey man, I start work at 5 this week, so who knows? I might come home and take a nap and not have time for Flash.
I can categorically say, with confidence, a nap will be better for you.
Yeah, probably, but you know how I roll.
Yeah, but man, there's tons of stuff that's not better for him. So,
dude,
yeah,
Taco
but
Bell,
that's the
number
point.
one.
He already does Taco Bell every day. You can't do Taco Bell and read the Flash.
I don't eat it every day. I haven't had Taco Bell in 2 weeks.
Do you know what? I had a Subway delivered the other day.
Yeah.
First time I've had a Subway delivered, they just opened it up to delivery near me, and it's the first time I've had fast food in months of any kind.
Go with Subway, which is very fast food.
Well, no, but it's the closest thing. It's the only thing that delivers. Like, you know, I can't get KFC, I can't get McDonald's, can't get Burger King, can't get anything else. So,
but
Subway,
see, I wouldn't even, because it's a sub sandwich, I wouldn't even consider that fast food.
Oh, you know what I mean? They're like more unhealthy than some of the others.
Maybe.
Like they're not good for you.
Depends on what you get. Cold cut trio, it's probably better than fried chicken, Connor.
Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah. Anyways,
but
I had Chipotle last night, and then we decided we wanted cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory, and I'm not lactose intolerant, but I do have issues with milk. Cheesecake was not a good idea on top of a Chipotle burrito.
Yeah, so, that sounds like poison to me.
Yeah, you would have died.
Doesn't sound like it literally is poison to you.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's been episode 203 of the show. So we're back to more normality next week because we actually have a reasonable list of books, and then we kind of keep that going for the most part. I mean, not super busy, but yes. So that has been the show. So of course, let us know what you think in the comments for any of the books. It's worth mentioning there is a new Comics from the Multiverse YouTube channel where the reviews get split up and put up as individual videos. The previously stuff's been going up consistently. A few things from last week's episode went up, and this episode as well. The full podcast is still existing as it always has done, audio and on YouTube. But it is something worth checking out if you want to. Over there, just Comics from the Multiverse on YouTube. But you can of course like the video on YouTube. Helps us out a lot. Lets people know that lets YouTube know that this is worth recommending, and maybe more people will find us. Rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. That helps us out a lot. As does of course financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. The $5 tier especially gives you early access to all the Multiverse shows by one day. And of course gives you voting rights occasionally on a previously on book. So please do go and have a look and see if you're interested in supporting all the content that we put out. But otherwise, that is us guys on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, and yeah, we'll see you next week. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, guys, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
And that's a good kitty.